Heartburn during pregnancy is pretty common, and it rarely has anything to do with eating those spicy foods. So, what can you do to calm that constant burning sensation brought on by your little one? I'm Sunny Galt with the New Mommy Media Network, and we'll talk about that and much more with our guest right after this quick break. Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny Gold with the New Mommy Media Network, and we are partnering with Pregnancy Magazine to answer the question, what can I do to prevent heartburn? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're pregnant and you haven't had heartburn, consider yourself lucky. I was not so fortunate in my pregnancies, hence today's video, right? So our expert today is Dr. Anthony Lissy. He is a family practice physician with Diamond Physicians, and Diamond Physicians focuses on proactive rather than reactive medicine. Dr. Lissy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Sonny, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this.
So let's talk about heartburn. What is it, and why is it common in pregnancy?
So what is heartburn? It's something, unfortunately, that afflicts too many Americans, specifically pregnant females. And the reason is because of a couple specific anatomical reasons and hormonal reasons. So backing up, we all have an esophagus. It's basically the food tube that takes the food down from the mouth into the stomach to begin the digestion process. At the bottom of that esophagus, between the esophagus and the stomach, we've got a sphincter, a round muscle that constricts and keeps everything in the stomach and opens when we need to pass food through. That's our lower esophageal sphincter. During pregnancy, we produce more acid than usual in the stomach because of hormonal effects. Typically, that acid stays in the stomach when that sphincter is tight and working the way it should. But because of hormones, progesterone specifically, relaxing that lower esophageal sphincter, we get that washing of the acid back up into the esophagus. The stomach has a lining to protect itself from that acid. The esophagus does not. So it irritates the lining of the esophagus, and that's what we feel, that burning sensation right down through the chest. A lot of people wonder if they're having a heart attack. It's heartburn. It's usually worse after a spicy meal. It happens a lot when they're laying down. And let's not forget, later in pregnancy, it's very common in the third trimester because we see obviously an increased mass in the belly that's pushing up and help funneling that acid up into the esophagus. So a lot of times you may not feel it until third trimester, and then it's fairly miserable down the stretch, unfortunately.
You know, I remember with my pregnancies, it usually happened around the 20-week mark. I felt like, because I have 4 children now, 3 pregnancies because I have a set of twins, but I felt like, you know, it got earlier and earlier the more babies I had. I guess I'm just fortunate that way. But is that what you commonly see? I mean, is it unusual for moms to experience this first trimester, or is it usually as the baby gets bigger and bigger?
Yeah, it's usually later on, whether late second trimester or third trimester. But we see women in the first trimester deal with it as well, especially if they've had a lot of nausea and vomiting issues, which can wear away or erode that esophagus, making it even more prone to having acid wash up.
All right, so the big question is, can we prevent this, or how do we treat this if we start to get some of these symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, in the typical Diamond model, we like to be proactive rather than reactive. So we like to try to nip this in the bud before it ever becomes a problem, when we can. Sometimes we can't do that, but how do we do it? So rather than eating 3 large meals throughout the day and really putting a huge, load of food in the stomach, which really pours out that acid production, eating smaller meals throughout the day more frequently can actually decrease the acid production and lessen the load on the stomach. So we have less of that acid that will actually wash up and affect that esophagus. Avoid processed foods, which unfortunately there's too many of them out there, too many refined processed foods. We want to try to eat as many natural foods that come from the ground, fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, our avocado, our nuts. We want to have those type of things supporting our nutrition because those are going to be less prone to increasing the acid production, like some of the refined processed foods, especially some of the bad fatty foods like our fried foods and our very greasy foods. That's going to make the problem worse. And of course, spice is going to make the problem worse. A couple things that increase the acid as well as decrease the pressure on that lower esophageal sphincter, coffee, chocolate, those type of things can actually make heartburn worse as well. So it's important to stay away from those if you're dealing with these issues. When you have the issue, what we want to do is try to cool it off as fast as we can. There's a couple of very natural ways to do that. The most common thing people do is drink milk or eat yogurt. Anything dairy like that, as long as you can tolerate it, will help coat the esophagus and decrease the sensation of that burning feeling. Some people actually swear by honey and warm milk. They say that ends their feeling of heartburn right away. Another thing too is making sure you're not eating too late before you lay down, because anatomically, think of gravity. If you're laying down, now all of a sudden as you're flat, that acid can wash up into the esophagus a little bit more easily and really lead to all these problems. So certainly don't eat big, heavy meals late at night. I always tell my pregnant patients, try not to eat for an hour before bed. And then if it gets really bad when you lay down, hey, consider throwing some phone books under the head of the bed and elevating the head of the bed, or sleep with multiple pillows. That's going to at least let gravity work in your favor and keep the acid in the stomach where it belongs.
Okay, is there any type of over-the-counter medicine that we can take when we have these symptoms?
Yeah, we try to say keep as natural as possible. Now, sometimes it just, no matter what you do, we're going to need something. I always tell people, speak with your physician about this, because some docs are a little bit more leery to let their patients use over-the-counter supplements than others. Things like Tums may have high levels of sodium, which can lead to fluid retention in certain patients. So we want to be careful about that. Generally, a few Tums every now and then, or a few of the medicines like Carafate that coat the esophagus can be safe, but I always say speak with your physician about it, because they'll give you specific recommendations particular to your pregnancy.
What about Rolaids? I know a lot of moms try to use Rolaids if Tums aren't working.
Yeah, same type of thing. They are more safe than Tums, and it's really a unique type proposition. We really need to be speaking with our physician about that, because we always say in medicine nothing's 100%. So what may be safe across the board for most may harm certain individuals. So always just run it by your physician to be safe.
And then how do you know if you need prescription medication? Because I was actually in that boat. No matter what I did, I was going to get this heartburn. It was really difficult for me to handle, and I was on prescription medication. So how do you know when that's the next step for you?
Yeah, when you've tried all the things we just discussed, and you're eating small meals throughout the day, you're elevating the head of your bed, and you're not eating spicy, fatty meals, and you're still dealing with this. You've tried the safe over-the-counter method your doctor has prescribed, and now it's starting to affect the quality of your life. It's time to talk about prescriptions. And there's a lot of them out there that are safe. There are some that are unsafe. So make sure you always have good open communication with your doctor and listen to their suggestions, and you should be good to go.
So some people think because you have a lot of heartburn, it's because your baby has a lot of hair. So I have to bring this up. Is that a correlation at all, or is that just something, that's been passed down generation after generation?
Yeah, I think that is an old wives' tale. I'm not aware of any scientific evidence that backs that up, but I do like that story a lot, and I think a lot of people would swear by that no matter what I tell them. So no, I don't think there's anything scientific behind that, though.
I don't know. I had a couple of babies that were pretty hairy, so I'm on the fence about that. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Lissy, thanks so much for being with us today. Be sure to check out more videos if you like this one. Head on over to our website at newmommymedia.com/pregnancy magazine. You can also download our free apps to listen to podcasts. You can subscribe to our newsletters and get more great information that will take you step by step throughout your pregnancy.